Hi, I'm John Gray, and welcome to Mars Venus TV. On today's show, we looked at relationships and ADHD and ADD, adult relationships. So often parents are told that their kids will grow out of ADD, and if you take these ADD medicines, that when you go off of them, then there's no side effects, there's no problem. But actually, I see it continuing on the rest of your life. I'm working on a book on that right now, but I'm focusing on the side effects of ADD. Whether you took the drugs for it or you didn't do something, you didn't find out, you weren't explained the natural solutions to correct the condition, to take away those symptoms, restore healthy brain function. And when you don't do that, then what occurs is ADD shows up in relationships, particularly as a lack of interest in your partner. You have to realize dopamine is interest. And you want to find interest. If you in the beginning of a relationship, particularly if you're ADD, the newness and the challenge is and the sex, it's what stimulates the dopamine. And then as soon as you've had sex a few times or a couple of years, as soon as you know your partner, you're familiar with your partner, the dopamine levels start to drop. And even when you love your partner, dopamine levels start to drop. Familiar, safety, security, dopamine levels start to drop. And that's another symptom of inhibited dopamine function, which is what ADD and ADHD are. See, it's attention deficit. You give attention to something when you have dopamine function in your brain. So inhibited dopamine function then causes you to have lack of attention, lack of focus. At the beginning, you have lots of focus and attention, and that gives rise to sexual desire and passion because it's new and different, big stimulators of dopamine. But once it's no longer new and different, she's new and different, he's new and different, suddenly we're looking for our dopamine from other sources rather than our partner, or we're going to our addictions to do it. So what happens is if you've been doing ADD drugs as a child, you'll probably become addicted to caffeine, or you become addicted to work, or you become addicted to sex with different partners, because one partner will bore you out after a while. You just get bored with them and you have to have something new and different. Addiction to pornography, addiction to sugar. These are all addiction to sleep. Various types of intense behaviors to take away the symptoms of ADD, which looks like intense hyperactivity and hyper-focus, hyper-compulsiveness, hypersensitivity, hyper-distractedness, hyper-boredom. So these are some of the things that happen in our relationships that we don't go, gee, I have ADD and that's why I'm having problems with my relationship. Now that's the male side of ADD, but some women have that as well. There's the female side of ADD, which is hypercritical, hypercompulsive, has to be a certain way, hyper looking at problems, hyper objection. Anything you want to, any kind of change take place, no, we can't do that. We have to do it this way. You should be this way. Hyper wanting to help. Hyper wanting to give, hyper wanting to receive. No, I want more. That's the high maintenance demanding woman. So you can get out of balance. Hyper bossy, hyper nice. So you're the codependent person. Hyper emotional, you're overly sensitive. All these things are destructive to relationships. And you can go all the counseling and you can do what will help. And you can do emotional work from your childhood and it will help. But what holds those things together, because we do need the behavioral side of it, we do need the inner work that we all need to do to be all that we can be. But on a physical level, there are so many physical factors that contribute to ADD and ADHD. We want to understand what those factors are, which is what we talked about today in the show. I'll give you one, which is just high sugar levels in the mother during pregnancy will cause high sugar in the baby. High sugar causes intense levels of dopamine to get produced, lots of pleasure. Intense dopamine imprints intense dopamine, and now your brain compensates by having less receptor sites. So you end up with less receptor sites. This is the whole phenomenon. What happens if you didn't have ADD and you just happen to take cocaine? Intense dopamine, less receptor sites. One shot of cocaine, you lose 30% of your dopamine receptor sites. Boom, gone. They can come back, but it takes time and takes the right nutrition and the right support. Same thing with sugar. With sugar over time, high carbohydrate diet, high blood sugar will start causing less and less dopamine receptor sites, and then you have to have more dopamine stimulation in order to feel alive. We all want to feel alive. Sometimes we do dangerous things to feel alive. Sometimes we're mean to people to feel alive. Sometimes we're mean to ourselves to feel alive. That's what S&M is. It's a safe form of being mean to others and having someone be mean to you. These extremes are all symptoms of ADD and ADHD, and there's like 1,000 different ways people can find that intensity, but as opposed to normal life being intense enough with little waves of a little more intensity, a little less intensity, kind of like you go to a Broadway show, there's going to be some magnificent songs and some sweet songs and some okay songs. So you have the contrast of life. That's all part of life. But it doesn't have to be all this, dangerous stuff and then feeling bored and flat and having to go back, or some addiction or some food. This is out of balance. And so we see the same phenomena that we see in little children, where we can manage, and they have different emotional needs than we do as adults. So it shows up differently. And the condition and the symptoms show up differently. So to understand all of these things that are going on in marriages today that are often killing the passion, killing the conversation, interrupting understanding, we have no flexibility, too much rigidity, oversensitivity. It all comes back to ADD. And the healing of that is not taking the drugs. That just contributes to the problem even more. The problem gets worse and worse. You need more and more drug. And then you have more and more addictions on top of that drug, as opposed to finding the nutritional support to assist your brain in coming back into balance. And those are the super minerals, the magnesium orotate that delivers the magnesium across the brain, the potassium orotate that brings the potassium across the brain, the lithium orotate that brings the lithium across the brain. When you get these minerals into your brain, then your brain can start healing itself, as long as you're putting yourself in the right conditions and you're not continuing to overstimulate yourself. So that's a glimpse into our possibilities for ourselves as adults to have better relationships, but also for our children to grow up and not be dependent on drugs, not be dependent on addictions, not be caffeined out or drugged out or emotionally upset on antidepressants, or being hypercritical of themselves, and girls being hypercritical of their bodies, boys getting into gangs. All these sort of dysfunctions of meanness and so forth, they all stimulate dopamine because we're not making a healthy amount of it. So let's find out some natural ways and start changing our lives and helping other people change their lives, particularly our children, by coming back to natural solutions to assist us in reversing these symptoms of ADD. And what might they look like is the super minerals as the beginning start. Healthy, good kinds of vitamin C that I explain at the website, the best kinds of vitamin C. Some work, ascorbic acid doesn't. Ascorbic acid works better. Natural extracts of fruits work better than that. Liposomal vitamin C works better than that. They're all getting more and more expensive, so you take your pick. Some of the cheaper ones will work. Grapeseed extract, and finding the right balance of those two. You got to have them both. Also the minerals. Also, if you have ADD and any of these addictions, your digestion isn't working right, because all addictions raise stress levels in your body, and stress levels inhibit digestion. So understanding easy to digest proteins and what those proteins are and how to get them, and so your body can get those amino acids from a natural source in order to make the brain work better. You can get amino acid supplements. They also work, but not as good as the natural. And you're getting the whole picture when you're getting it from the food. So what foods can you get that from? It'd be great if you could get your minerals from foods. You just can't. Our minerals, our foods today are just too deficient in minerals. And it'd be great if we didn't need these excess amounts of vitamin C and grapeseed extract. That's not really food, but that's once you have damage, your body needs medicine. An animal, if it gets sick, has inflammation, it will produce thousands of times more vitamin C. We're the only species, basically, that there's a few exceptions that doesn't make its own vitamin C. So we have to collect and get more vitamin C. So these are some of the insights you'll learn at Mars Venus TV and at marsvenus.com. Check out our blogs on ADD, ADHD, and check out today's show, which is how ADD and ADHD affect our adult relationships. You have a good day. And make sure to share this with your other friends on Facebook.